On today's episode of the Wild Party podcast, I share my inspiring conversation with Ashley Victoria Smith, the founder of Voglia Swimwear. This bold and innovative swimwear brand is redefining fashion with sustainability at its core. Inspired by a vivid dream, Ashley Victoria turned her vision into reality, creating high quality, eco conscious swimwear made from recycled ocean waste. But this is more than just a fashion brand. Her mission is to clean up our oceans, educate consumers about fashion waste, and prove that sustainability and style can go hand in hand. If you've ever had a dream that felt too big to chase, this episode is for you. Let's get the party started. Welcome to the Wild Party podcast, where we celebrate the visionaries behind vegan, ethical, and sustainable business. In each episode, we'll dive deep into their journeys, uncovering the why behind their mission-driven business. I'm your host, Stephanie Lahart. Tune in with me for passionate discussions about overcoming challenges, innovative marketing strategies, and the power of using business as a force for good. So whether you're an entrepreneur seeking guidance or a conscious consumer wanting to support impactful brands, join us as we explore the stories behind the businesses that are changing the world for the better. Let's get the party started. And today I'd like to welcome to the podcast Miss Ashley Victoria of Voglia Swimwear. She is an entrepreneur in the truest sense of the word, where she had an idea and she knew that she could not only do it, but she could make the world better doing it. So Ashley is the founder of Voglia Swimwear, which is a truly environmental and sustainable swimwear line. You know, we have to have the cute bikinis, but we also wonder after swim season, what happens to those bathing suits? Because I don't know about you, but I do have a drawer of swimsuits that I don't wear anymore because for whatever reason, maybe I got bigger, maybe I got smaller, maybe they're stretched out. But then I sit there and I say, are these recyclable? Like, what do I do with them? And Ashley Victoria really solved that problem for us. So welcome to the show, Ashley.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. And yes, I know the feeling about having too many bikinis.
You know, where did you get this inspiration to start this swimwear line?
Yes, that actually goes really, really far back. The inspiration that really came from a dream. I used to be a fashion show producer, as well as I've been a model. I've been a state pageant holder. I've been in this industry since I was 4 years old. And so being in the industry that long, I knew I needed to get out. I needed to find a way to have more purpose and have more work that served intention. And I kept asking the universe, hey, like, what can I do? How can I escape this industry? How can I, again, do what I love to do, but really, again, more purpose? And I believe when you ask the universe questions or ask, her to bring you something, she does listen and she does respond. And in my case, I was going through a really, really bad breakup. My boyfriend at that time had broken up with me, and we had lived together. So if you can only imagine the tension and not only the heartache of that, I knew I needed to get out. So I took a trip to New York, and that night, the inspiration came to me in a dream. And this dream was so vivid and it was colorful, and I could taste, I could smell, I could, sense everything happening. And when you're given a dream like that, it's not just for entertainment purposes, right? It's for you to really wake up and bring it to life. So that's how the whole concept came to me.
Okay, so I have a funny story for you. You are not the first one of my guests who started their business based on a dream.
Hey, um, it comes to you. One of a great mentor that I follow, or actor now, is Steve Harvey, right? And at the end of one of his shows, he actually was telling a story, how he told his mom, like, hey mom, I'm gonna be rich, when I grow up. And his mom kept on telling him, no, you're not gonna be rich. You're not gonna be, this, not gonna be that. And long story short, he was saying that God gave him that vision. It wasn't a vision for his mom to see. It wasn't a vision for, somebody else in his family to see. It was only for him to see. So same thing, with the other guests that you had on, like if they were giving a vision that clear and that, that strong, like that's a calling, and it may take you a while to understand that, or again bring it to life. Like I never thought I'd become a swimwear designer ever, right? So when I started working on this, like it took me 5 years of research. It took me 5 years to really put together a cause, a purpose, and that part didn't come in the dream, right? The dream was the glamorous thing. The dream was the flashy, cool, being published in Vogue, all that. The dream wasn't the hard work. So you got to be able to recognize that, and I think that those 5 years of research and development allowed me to again take it one step further.
Yeah, and that's amazing then that the dream actually just led you not only to this amazing business idea, but sustainability was such a core component of it because your swimwear is actually created with a focus on eco-friendly materials and production processes. And I know it's super important to you, from what I've read about you, that you really watch your ecological footprint and that you do contribute to a healthier planet. So with that said, so your actual swimwear is made from something called Econo. Is that how you say it?
I guess so. I'd say Econile. Econile. Yes, it's actually produced in Italy. So it's a fabric. It's regenerated nylon. So it's not made out of plastic bottles. It's not made out of plant waste or anything like that. It's made specifically out of illegal fishing nets that are found in our ocean, as well as other nylon. Again, uh, older clothing, older swimwear brands that they tear up, shred up, clean out, and then repurpose into fabric again.
That's really amazing. So, okay, so you had this dream, and in the dream, was it specifically that you just wanted to launch your own business, or was it focused on swimwear itself?
Oh, it was definitely focused on swimwear in itself.
Okay.
Because I was doing Miami Swim Week. I was producing fashion shows for lingerie and swimwear has always been my forte. Even with my fashion show productions, I hate clothes. I Back in high school, I was voted to be president of a nudist camp because I don't like wearing clothes. But I don't like shopping for clothes. I don't like styling, but I do like swimwear. I do, like wearing, a cute bikini. So yeah, it's yeah.
Okay, then, so from dreaming about it, then to launching it, what were the first three steps that you took to actually make it real?
Just diving into research. I mean, again, I've never thought about being a swimwear designer. So I needed to understand the market. I needed to see who the key players were. And then also really looking into our fashion waste. We have about 70 plus tons of fashion waste a year. Studying about that, studying consumer habits, um, and not just that as in a broad spectrum, but geography wise as well. In America, the consumerism rate is much higher than across the pond in European countries, as well as Australia, New Zealand, all those countries. So really, just understanding how Americans buy, as well as how Europeans buy, or other countries buy. So figuring out logistic behind that, but also, you know, within the dream, it's like I didn't want to be just another swimwear brand, right? I really need to make sure that if I'm going to do this, I need again with purpose and intention. And it took me a while to figure out exactly how to fuse everything together, right? So I started researching on, again, fashion waste, what's affecting our planet, not just climate change, but small things, that we do, from just producing styrofoam, producing, one-time use plastics. Um, how are the recycling facilities set up in your area? Like all these little things came into play for me to hone down exactly how this was going to be done, and not just that as far as material wise, but as far as um, uh, manufacturing morale. I'm not sending this stuff overseas to countries that, child labor or don't pay their workers, a living wage, or you question, how your piece is actually being made. So researching different manufacturers who practice, you know, doing good. They give back. Who's making your pieces. I call it like an open door policy. Like if I wanted to stop by or call up and see how my things are going, there's no sketchy. There's no middleman on that. So all of those things are taken in consideration and developing the line. And then also the shipping. How are you packaging your items? It's not just the swimwear being sustainable, it's how are you shipping this to your consumers? Are you using one-time use plastics? Are you using the styrofoam? Like, is the cardboard recyclable? How even the tape, like everything goes down to the nitty-gritty. Because if you're not doing it on a 360 model, it defeats the purpose.
That's totally true. And I feel like in a lot of ways we kind of gloss over that because we don't think about it. Like we have these things here, and you've probably seen them, like the edible arrangements. It's the fruit arrangements. And
Yes.
when you get them, the amount of excess packaging that it comes in is overwhelming. I received one year for a gift for something, I don't know, birthday or whatever. And I called the person up immediately and I said, "You know what? I thank you so much. It was very considerate of you. Please never send this to me again." Because like you said, the amount of plastic and styrofoam and packing materials was a gigantic pile next to this very tiny little fruit cup, basically. I mean, it was a fruit cup in the end. I was horrified. I'm like, that is so wrong on so many levels. So I'm glad there are people out there like you that are like, hey, I want a successful, profitable business, but I don't want it at the expense of the world. So, with that said, I know you mentioned that you did find this amazing sustainable material over in Italy. How were you able to find this source? Was this just through some online research, or did you meet it through connections, or where did they come from?
Really online research, just typing in keywords, sustainable manufacturing, eco-friendly companies to work with, like just, using those keywords. And, I jotted down like a whole list of them and I just went to every individual site. If I couldn't get a call with them, I didn't work with them.
Hmm.
So I'm a face-to-face person. I'm partially deaf, so I have to be face-to-face. I can't use a phone. So if that manufacturer, the account rep or, the sales team wouldn't get on a phone call with me, then I wasn't gonna work with them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good practice. There is so much kind of this plug and play, just click and you buy it and you don't really think about it. And there's a lot to be said for that face to face, especially when you're just starting a business and being comfortable and making sure that they are in alignment with with what you're really trying to do. So, can you like maybe share with us what was maybe one of the most unexpected lessons that you have learned so far from running Volia Swimwear?
Oh, so many. Um, so an unexpected lesson, yes. Wholesale. Um, for a good 2 years, I was really focused on wanting to get um, the swimwear into high-end retailers.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm not talking about Macy's or Nordstrom. I'm talking about like above, above them, and predominantly overseas. in Europe, Dubai, those countries. And I didn't have inventory. I had the samples that I was able to send, uh, but I didn't have inventory. And I realized that even though the companies would be interested in in picking up the brand, I was still responsible in getting that bulk inventory first, right? My mindset was like, oh, okay, great. You want to order, XYZ to make the money. I'll send you the bikinis. No, I needed to have inventory, and that was um, it was a really costly investment in, hiring a sales team to reach out to these buyers and to these stores and not be able to fulfill it 100% on my end.
Yeah, and I mean that is definitely consideration when you're starting a business. It's like everybody wants overnight success, and then you have to think, am I really prepared for this? Do I have the systems in place? Do I have the sales? Do I have the product? And it's frequently in that first year it is no. So, with that said, speaking of years, I know that you consider yourself, or we would consider it, a slow fashion brand. And that means you produce one collection per year. So, what led to that decision, and how do you think that's impacting your business? Do you think it creates more excitement kind of having like a merch drop? Because merch drops are very hot.
I never looked at the merch drop, but as far as creating excitement, it's more the line of it's a quiet luxury, right? People say sometimes you have to disappear and then come back, and when you come back, it's like boom, bigger, better. But I maybe the word respect isn't the best word, but I do think that it builds some sort of respect of the brand with the right consumer. They know you're only doing one collection a year, and if that, I went a year and a half without doing a collection at all.
Mm.
I only do collections that come to me. Again, I don't sit down and think about, oh, well, what can I, design today? No, like I have to see it somewhere somehow in my mind, and then take that and put it onto, the product. So as far as, it being like the impact, still being a small business, it is a hard impact because we're not fast fashion, and I'm not shipping out pieces every single day. Um, but I'm scaling that.
Hmm.
And, again, I'm not trying to reach every single woman out there. I'm trying to reach the ones that truly, genuinely care, about our environment. I know we can't stop buying new clothes, but we can shop smarter. We can shop more sustainably. And if you think about it, if I would rather spend $300 on a shirt and know that shirt's gonna last me, let's say, a lifetime,
Hmm.
than to spend $30 on a shirt on Amazon and it goes bad, within a year, right? And that's where the slow fashion comes in. It's quality. You're building a relationship with your customers, and it's transparency. You know, we we want to know who's behind our brand, as much as I want to know who's behind making the product.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm gonna put you actually into a category you're gonna love. You are a true couture designer. Because people forget before fast fashion took us over, it used to be design houses like Chanel, and all the other names I can't think of right now, Yves Saint Laurent. Um, they would release maybe two collections a year. You would have spring, you would have fall. That was it. It wasn't a constant turnover. And, that really elevated the brands because it was something special. And now, if you go into any of these high resellers that are in LA, like we have one here that is called The Real Real, and they
Yes,
have these designer collections, it is something exclusive. Like this is from Halston, the 1970s spring line. Like it was limited production.
they're
You can't
still
get
in
that
great
anymore.
shape, right? They're still in like prime condition, and you would never know that it was made in 1976.
Right. And it's a collector's thing. People like honor that. They're like, this is a part of a collection that was limited. You can't get that anymore. And I think elevating the experience like you have, really, you're right. You're going to find those customers that means something to, because the fast fashion isn't sustainable. We have too much crap clothing that people wear once or twice, maybe not at all. They throw it into what they think is a recycling bin, and all it does is get packaged up and sent to Ghana and dumped on their beaches. And I'm glad that we're finally seeing these documentaries like on Netflix where we're really being exposed now to that, to show that. Like, Brandy Melville, yes, their clothes are created in Italy, but they're sweatshops in Italy, right? So this all hiding behind all of this stuff, unless we start talking about it and then also taking the action to do something like you have and saying, no, I'm going to do a limited release collection. I think we can retrain our consumer habits.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
think, you're
It's
definitely one of
all
the
about,
forefront of that.
for sure. It is all about, again, it's all about, transparency and being upfront with the consumers. Like it's to me it's so upsetting that you have these multi-billion dollar brands out there that have the resources and the tools and the knowledge to make the shift,
Hmm.
you know, but they don't want to do it. And it's upsetting. I'm like, why not? Like it's here. We have it, and I just so it just bothers me that they don't want to adapt and do it right.
Yeah. Well, speaking of collections, I do notice right now, because I can see you on camera, you are wearing the honeybee collection. And I did see it on your website as well. Tell me a little bit of the inspiration behind that one, because that one is so cute and
Yeah.
just so heartwarming. Like it just makes you want to wear it.
Yes, so going back to our mission, everything that we do is on a sustainable model. Uh, and every collection that we release is it gives back into some capacity to a nonprofit, to an organization, um, just again raising awareness as a whole. So the Oh Honey collection, our honeybees are responsible for more than half of the world's you know raw fibers, oils, materials, pollinating our fruits and vegetables. Like these are really important creatures. Um, and we need to do better at, taking care of them. And so the Oh Honey collection is to honor our honeybees. And the sales of this collection actually goes back to the local bee farmers and organizations, as well as the nonprofits that were already registered, like One Tree Planted and all those. So again, it's raising the awareness, and it's helping out, your local bee organizations and beekeepers and farmers.
Yeah, I did notice that you are partnered with One Tree Planet. What does that partnership look like to you?
I think it's a great thing. My grandmother once told me when you're able to give. So it's a no-brainer to partner with them. For every dollar spent, a tree is planted. So, if you buy, let's say, $200 bikini, 200 trees get planted.
That's so cool. And like you said, it's like you are attracting the right kind of person, because I am that person. Like I would definitely be interested in like, oh, this company's giving back. They're actually interested. Because like you, for me, part of my budget is always giving back. Like I look at my revenue during the year and say, well, what part of this can I donate, or what part can I make sure that it's actually helping some other organization? So I love that that's also integrated into your messaging, and it's so transparent. Like I said, I read all about it on your website, which I loved seeing. So I think you're definitely on the right path for that one. So, speaking on the right path, I know social media has played a big part in your marketing. In fact, I saw some great, I guess, partnerships or influencer videos on your Instagram. So, let's talk a little bit about like that. How are you building these partnerships with these influencers that are now, helping to promote your brand?
For sure. Well, a lot of it goes back to just personal connections, from, being a model in the past, as well as working fashion shows. Um, but the new ones have, of course, they, slide into your DMs, and, just saying, hey, we want to, work with you. But the catch is the vetting. You know, they may have 1.5 million followers and a great, face and looks wonderful in a bikini, but if their feed is full of like Shein and Amazon and Temu hauls, no, I can't work with you. If you do a lot of posting with, plastic cups in your hand or have a picture of you having a party with the red Solo cup, no, it's not for you. So, it's really being selective on who I choose to work with. And they also have to be genuinely interested in the product and the brand and not just wanting a free bikini and a paycheck. So the influencers that I have worked with, we call them our Voglia babes. They're the ones that I continue to work with. The ones I know I can, trust and count on to create content that is of quality. Really take the time to study the brand, the aesthetic, the ethos behind it, and also just want to stay in touch throughout the year and not just when something comes up. So it has been a good thing with that, as well as different companies reaching out to you to be a part of the e-coms, like drop shipping opportunities, magazine editorial spread opportunities, and again, introducing me to who is available. I have talent manager, the other PR firms, pitching, their influencers or their actors and talent. And I may not be a yes right away, but at least it's building that awareness for me. So when I want to, launch a new collection or do another shoot, I have people that are interested already. So it saves time shopping around as well to find, the right people.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely none of these influencers that are doing what we call the hauls. When I first started seeing the haul videos, I was just horrified. I'm like, you're buying so much stuff you're never going to wear. And now actually there are people that are making videos that are pointing out how much, when they see a haul video, like how much of that stuff is never going to be used. They're like this, like stop doing it. So I'm glad the conversation's out there. Like you don't need to buy in excess. You should buy quality and plan on keeping stuff for a long time like you've done with your swimwear line. So, with that said, you teased me earlier that you were going to tell me the origin of your company name. So, why don't you do that now?
Okay, so yeah, so you know, I need again, I need to come up with something um that brings everything together, right? And I started looking up translation for the word wish. And one of them came up was Volia. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's great. And so at that time I was mispronouncing it for the longest time. And one of my model friends, actually an influencer, an actor, is actually from Italy. And he was with me one day and he was like, Ash, he's like, girl, it's Bolia. I'm like, oh, this is really bad. I've been saying it Voglia for so long. But he's like, it's Volia, Volia. And I'm like, thank you, thank you. But he also said that it means desire and not really wish. And I'm like, it can be both. Like he was like, yeah, I mean, you can we use it more for like desiring like a wish for you. And he was like, okay, you can use that as a wish. So I was like, I thought so because I don't have time to rebrand this right now. But I'm actually glad that I got corrected by a real Italian.
I love that. Yes. So it said Voli, and I'm really glad that I asked you early on in our conversation. I'm like, how do you actually pronounce that? Because I would have totally gone with however, Voglia or whatever, because yes, the G is silent. So that silent little consonant in there. But I do like what he said that it is more in line with desire, because I think that is more in line with the path of an entrepreneur, you know? It's that desire, that passion to do something. I think it's a stronger feeling than a wish. A wish almost sounds like, oh, I wish this would happen to me. And desire is more like, I'm going to make that happen for me. So I'm going to go with your friend. Let's stick with the desire side because I can feel that in you and with what you've done here. So, with this whole idea and building your brand and everything you've been through, what would be some advice you would give to a new entrepreneur that was just out there starting with their own idea? Maybe not swimwear, but maybe something else. One piece of advice that you could
Oh,
hand to them that you have learned.
yes, I get asked that a lot. And, the only advice that I'm old school. I'm tough as nails. I don't mind rolling up my sleeves and putting in the work. I grew up in the country. Our dad was on the farm. Like, everything that we have, we work for it, right? So as far as advice to an entrepreneur, it's suck it up. You gotta put in the work. You gotta ask yourself, how bad do you want it? It's one thing to start the business. That's great. But you also have a business mindset. I have worked with so many talented, extremely talented people, but they gave up because it was too hard.
Hmm.
But it's also because they didn't have the mentality. They didn't have the business savvy mindset. We joke that they were just in for the glitz and glamour, right? They didn't want to sweat. They didn't want to put in the work. But the advice I give you is just you got to think about how bad do you want it, and really the sacrifices. If you're going to start a business, you have to shift and adjust every single part of your life. That is from relationships to finances to yourself, self-care, to your budgeting. Like you have to. It's a whole nother level, you know. Um, and if you're not willing to lose to be able to gain more, then being a business owner is not going to be for you.
Yeah, I think you nailed it right on the head there. I always laugh when somebody talks about an overnight success, and I'm like, oh, you mean the 10-year journey to be the
Yeah,
overnight success? Because we always, in
that
any
is so
business, it
true.
takes a certain amount of setup, preparation, and then actual activation, as I call it. Like from idea to activation can be very long, or it can be, I don't know. I don't want to say very long and put people off, but it's never overnight. There are steps they have to put in place to actually have a sustainable, profitable, product or brand or business. And like you said, you have to suck it up. Sometimes it just sucks. And sometimes you're like, oh, I'm being recognized as Charlotte's future leaders, which I know you were. So, when you get that kind of, accreditation, it does feel good, doesn't it?
It does, but I always ask the universe, when I do my morning meditation, I ask her to remind me to remain humble, and to remain grounded and solid, no matter what awards I win, no matter what opportunities are handed to me, is to always just not overdo it, right? And one thing about entrepreneur is the designer Rebecca Mingle, many of us know. She was on a podcast and she was talking about how she was invited to speak at an engineering conference. And she said one thing that was a huge takeaway from her is that these engineers have what's called a failure funnel. And she's like, they shoot for it. She's like, they start doing all of these, ideas and concepts and they throw it in the funnel. And, if it works, awesome, go with it. But if not, they keep on throwing it. So it's like they're losing, but they're winning at the same time. And she's like, that's how you have to do it. It's like, when the new NFTs came out, she, invested in that. NFTs right now are kind of, came and went, right? It was part of her failure funnel. She's like, okay, we're not doing that again. Move on to the next thing. So the same thing is, like putting out Facebook ads. You have to do testing A, B, and C. You have to figure out which ones work, so building a business, you need to have that failure funnel. You need to know, the law of averages. Like, I'm going to pitch out 10, 8 are going to be failures, 2 may work, it a numbers game, making sure that I'm not talking about numbers and finance wise. I'm just talking about numbers and like, if you're pitching, let's say you want to put your product in a magazine, you're gonna have to pitch more than one journalist, right? You have to, the financial expert Susie Orman, I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly.
Yes.
She always says that, your success is in your follow-up, right? So how many times are you following up? Not just on the pitch, but let's say on, a lead for you to put your clothes in a boutique. It's the same practice as your email blast, through your, news chains. Like, how many times are you positioning your product in front of your ideal customer? Your first round may not work, second round may not work, but that consistency, that habit is again what's going to bring that business to you.
So true. And you just blew my mind with that term, failure funnel. I've never heard that before. And I love that it's like in the engineer space because automatically it's like credible, right? But that just makes so much sense. Like you have to be prepared to like try every idea and then it's part of the failure funnel. And I love that. I'm going to keep that with me. And when you were saying about taking the chances and, making sure you're doing the follow up, there's something I always remember. And I think it was a sports coach that said it. And I don't remember exactly who it is, but they said you miss 100% of the shots you
Yep,
don't
you
take,
don't
right?
take.
I don't
Yes.
remember who said that, but I think about that all the time, especially in those moments when I'm really starting to self-doubt. I'm like, look, girl, if you don't take the shot, you definitely miss it. If you at least make the call, make the outreach, like you said, do the follow-up, then you have a shot. And so even if you don't get the immediate reaction, like you said with that email, take the shot again. In fact,
Yeah.
keep taking the shot until they definitively come back and say, never ever contact me again. Because I think a lot of times in our businesses, we sit there from a place of fear and think, oh my God, we just, our business is not right. We're not doing it right. And really, it just wasn't the right time for that person.
It's such a mind game. I know right out of college, I worked, and this is before Instagram, before social media, okay? I worked for a marketing company, direct marketing. So we set up our booth at different events, and we had to engage in customers, right? Shoppers. And our boss kept telling us every single day, you have to talk to everybody.
Mhm.
You have to talk to everybody. You just never know who's going to say yes. And the problem with, I think, predominantly with us women is we are afraid of the word no,
Mm.
right? And especially something like this, like this is my baby. So if I'm pitching to a boutique and they say no, we don't want your product, the first side is like, okay, Ash, don't take it personally. It's just the product. It's just the brand. She may not know you're the designer. It's okay, right? We're so afraid to hear that no, because again, we think that we failed. When in reality, it's just bringing us closer to a yes. So you should shoot for the nose. Get all the negative things out of the way, because that first yes you get, while it may have taken you, tons of yeses and no's to get there, it's going to be your big break. And it's an inspiring story that I always go by is, believe it or not, is KFC, Colonel Sanders' story, right? He pitched to almost 78 different brokers, investors, his concept for KFC, right? And if he had gotten, let's say, a yes on the fourth pitch, he may not have, KFC may not have been what it is this today, right? So he had to go through all of those pitches, with the investors, and taking that no and taking that, maybe so, to be able to get that one yes to build the business that he had, well, that KFC is now. Um, so, I take that, with me a lot. Like, you got to go for the no, get those out of the way, keep talking, keep going through it, and because when you get that yes, you're going to just forget all about the no's that you had in the past.
Yeah, and for sure, I think you're right. As women, we kind of take that personally, and then I look to men for that and think, how many times does a guy just go out and ask, 100 different girls to go out because they knows at some point one of them is going to say yes. And in fact, for me personally, it always does make me laugh when a guy approaches me and maybe like, ask me out or whatever, and I look at them and I think, did they really think they were going to get a date with me, or is this them just part of practicing? Because sometimes you're just like, you obviously, I wouldn't go out with you. Like, maybe I'm too old for you, whatever it is. But they asked me anyway. And part of me is like, oh, I
They
must
shoot
look
their
really good
shot.
today. But part of me is like, oh, I must look really good today. And part of me is like, I think I'm just part of the law of averages at this point because seriously, dude, you're like 20, but whatever, but it's just one of those things. It's kind of funny. But, going back to you personally, can you share a win that you've had in the last 6 months that you're like, wow, that really worked out for me and I'm so excited it did?
Just moving forward. This past year I had a lot of setbacks, manufacturing setbacks. Um, and took a big loss on certain things, but I didn't give up. I mean, I thought, okay, well, that sucks. Let me find a way to do it. And I just stuck to my my gut, really. I just kept moving forward. I didn't stop. I took a break. Don't get me wrong. I took my break. I have cried bathtubs of tears. Like I said, it's not an easy journey, but after the cry session, get up, get a cup of coffee, and start over again.
Yeah, and I will just say, for you personally, I would just also like to give you some kudos because when I put my query out the other day when I was looking for guest on this list, you were one of the first people that responded. Like immediately, you were in there. She's like, "Oh yeah, hi, I'm here. I'm Ashley Victoria, and this is my business and my swimwear line." I was like, "Good for you, girl," because you had no idea really. I'd put out my query, said what I was looking for, and it's funny because like I got a certain amount of people responding immediately, and then they trickled in over the last, a couple of hours, and then believe it or not. It took a few days for people to respond. And I'm like, no, I would have been like, Ashley Victoria, I would have been the first one in. It's like, oh, you're looking for a podcast guest? I'm your person, right? So, anybody out there listening, if you see a request for an interview or a guest or whatever, throw your name in, right? You were like what in fact, you can tell because you're pretty much on the top of my interview list. I now have about 30 interviews lined up and you were number 2. So, good for you.
Oh, that means a lot. No, but again, it's putting in the work. Like I'm up every morning around 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. And get my dogs, what they need. I get myself what I need, and I go to work, and I take my breaks, but I know at the end of the day, nobody else is going to do this for me. I've hired people to do, certain things, things, obviously things that aren't my strengths, right? To help, with email marketing, to help with sales, to help, with just content and strategy. And it just, I'm not a babysitter or a micromanager. So when it came to get the materials or results I was looking for from them, it wasn't there because I expected them to do what I what I had outlined. So you have to. I like to joke about, you have to run your business like a coffee shop owner, right? So if you want to open up a coffee shop, the first thing you need to know is all about coffee, right? That's down to the bean. That's down to the geographical region of where that bean is produced and the flavor, right? You need to know every single thing about how to, pick it, how to roast it, how to process it, all that, right? On top of that, you need to understand different roasts on the spectrum. Like, you have to know every single thing behind the coffee before you open up a coffee shop. And even though you may not be the barista, even though you may not even set foot in the store. But if you're going to be the owner of that coffee shop, you need to know how to do every single thing, just in case something happens and you need to turn the lights on one day and no one's there to work but you. Like the same thing with me. It's like no one else is going to get this out, no matter how much time or energy I spend on them, but me.
Very true. And I think that's great words of advice and a great way to end this conversation. I have had so much fun talking to you. You have been a joy, and not only just learning about your business, but actually personally inspiring me. So I definitely want to keep in touch with you. And I personally can't wait to see what your next collection is. I just love everything that I had seen that you had already created. It's so beautiful. It's so
Thank you.
just, I think, very, uplifting. It made me feel good. And I live in LA, so it's always swimsuit season. So
Oh,
I'm always
right.
like, yes, I always need a new bathing suit. And I love now that we have the sustainability activation in it because, for me personally, I don't want to buy crap that I'm throwing away. I don't want to throw it in landfills. I want to be much more thoughtful. And much like your customers that are out there, they are now finding you as well. So with that said, thank you so much, Ashley Victoria, for being on the show. It has been a joy, and I can't wait to see what you are up to next.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Wild Party Podcast. If you're an entrepreneur or professional who would like to be on this podcast, please visit boomtownmarketing.com and click on podcast. We believe that every business has the potential to change the world for good, and we want to support our community to help make the world more ethical, compassionate, and sustainable for all future generations to come. And if you're looking to build your business, no matter what level you're at now, request your free marketing consultation at boomtownmarketing.com and click Get Started.